to let you know, this episode deals with issues surrounding PTSD. Welcome to Filmability. My name is Joel Wisher and I'm the author of Filmability, a history of disciplines in cinema, which you can find on Amazon and Kindle and paperback. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back if you've joined me before, and hello if this is your first time listening. This week I'll be talking about The Best of Men, the 2012 film made for the BBC about the founding of what was to become the Paralympic Games. Starting in a small hospital during World War II in a place called Stoke Mandeville and going on to become a worldwide event alongside the Olympics. The Best of Men is directed by Tim Whitby, a director best known for directing various episodes of British TV shows such as New Tricks, The Indian Doctor and Cold Feet. It's written by Lucy Gannon, who is best known for writing episodes of British TV shows. Just to let you know, this episode deals with issues surrounding PTSD, including Peak Practice, Soldier and EastEnders. If you'd like to watch The Best of Men, then you can find it to watch for free in the UK on Amazon Prime, and you can rent or buy it digitally elsewhere. So without further ado, let's get on with the film. Okay, so the film starts with a card saying England 1944. Some boys are playing and laughing, and then we cut to a man who's in what looks like a tin bath, and he's raised out of it by a doctor and nurse, all while jaunty swing music is playing. And then we see a jar of urine is put below the bed of the man, and the tube leading up to him. And this is Private William Heath, and he's played by George Mackay. But he's credited as Richard Mackay for some reason. A man with a moustache is coming into a building, and this is Dr. Ludwig Gutzmann, and he's played by Eddie Marsan. Next scene, a group of men are in a bed. William is talking in his sleep, crying for help, and Dr. Gutzmann comes into the hospital and he looks bemused. He comes into the ward and opens the curtains wide. He takes charge and he comes over to another man. He's in great pain, and he asks the doctor to kill him. A man in another bed is cynical and hates the other man complaining, and this man is Corporal Winbowen, and is played by Rob Brydon. Dr. Gutzmann tells the nurses what to do and assures them that they are his patients now. He's coming, he's taken charge, and he's shown them that there could be another way of doing things. The nurses are talking about the doctor in another room. The younger one is called Nurse Carr, and she's played by Lee Quinn, and the older one is Sister Edwards, and she's played by Neve Cusack. Nurse Carr makes fun of the doctor, and particularly the Nazis, because he's got a German accent. He then comes into the room to interrupt them and asks for an apron. Back in the ward, Dr. Gutzmann cuts off a cast with a pair of large trimmers, I'm not sure what the word is, big medical shears. He asks for the notes for the patients as William lays on his side and he's looking really defeated. Later Dr. Gutzmann says that they shouldn't have pain medication, and Wynne says that he likes it. Outside, Dr. Gutzmann is arguing with the nurses. They think that they should be keeping the patients comfortable, whereas Dr. Gutzmann says that he's there to make them better. Back in the ward, the doctor is asking a patient questions while Wynne makes jokes. William is then experiencing flashbacks in another part of the ward. He has feelings of PTSD while images run through his mind, and Dr. Gutzmann calms him down, reminding him where he is and keeping him in the present. Then Dr. Gutzmann goes about removing the catheters from the patients. He then comes to Wynne, who says he's become rather attached to it. The nurses are outside smoking, and they're complaining about the doctor, and Nurse Carr says that she thought it would be more fancy work than what they're doing. Dr. Gutzmann is told that another doctor has been made aware of his methods, and isn't happy. The other doctor is Dr. Cowan. He's played by Richard McCabe, and he arrives and he looks down at Dr. Gutzmann, disagreeing with the treatment that he's suggesting. They go to an office with a man in uniform sitting at a desk, and this is General Blake, and he's played by Nicholas Jones. They argue about what they're doing, and Dr. Gutman says he's not being allowed to do his work, he just wants to help them. Back in the ward, Dr. Gutman comes back in, and he's wheeling a patient on the bed. He starts singing a jolly song, and the patients join in, and it turns out the patient in bed was William. The doctor then later tells them what else he wants to do, and Sister Edwards gets angry because it's not the way that she's used to doing things, but the doctor has the final word. Then Dr. Gutman's treating Wynne, who's complaining, saying he's being treated differently because he's Welsh, and a voice from another patient tells him to shut up complaining. You can see the sort of parallel there. He's getting out of his comfort zone, he doesn't like it. Dr. Gutman is then with William, and he's telling him not to give up, and he says that his chances of surviving are getting better. Dr. Gutman then goes back to the General and says that he needs more resources, and the General tells him that there's been a lot of office politics, you can't just ask for things and get them because it's the war. There's sort of general excuses and red tape, that kind of thing. Dr. Gutman says he feels like he's been told his place, and that he has been told to behave, but he ends up storming off angrily. He goes back to the ward, and Sister Edwards says that the patients haven't slept, and they've been in pain all night. Then we go to Sister Edwards, who was asking patients about their lives. Wynne's being asked about his life, and he says that he was an engineer in the army. Another patient's being interviewed as well, and the patient is smoking. Then William is interviewed, and he says that he joined up on his birthday. William is a very young man, and he feels remorseful for having even joined the army in the first place. Sister Edwards leaves, and she says that she thinks Dr. Gutman has caused the way that William thinks, and that the treatment isn't working. Then Dr. Gutman comes into the room, and a voiceover from his mind tells the audience that he could do so much more if he was just allowed to do so. In the ward, Wynne is in a wheelchair, and he throws up. He's then put back into bed and says being upright was the thing that did it because he had so much time lying down. Dr. Gutman says that he should look after himself better, and that was the reason why he threw up. Another patient laughs, and Wynne tells him to shut up. A soldier arrives at the ward later, and this is Sergeant Hills, played by Tristan Sturrock. Wynne complains about his arms, and Dr. Gutman says that he should be exercising more. Sergeant Hills says that he's been sent there by mistake, and he's not cut out for working in a hospital. Dr. Gutman says that they all have to make do, and tells him that he'll see him in the morning. He's definitely taking charge where he can. Sister Edwards is then by the bedside of a catatonic patient. She wipes his chin and starts to ask him questions, but he doesn't respond. Outside, William is with his parents, and his dad is played by Nigel Lindsay, and his mum is played by Rachel Spence. And they're making small talk. It's awkward. They clearly aren't dealing with it well, and they're treating William differently than they would have done before. But William said he's hopeful for this treatment, and while they are talking, the catatonic patient is watching from a bed in another part of the hospital, and he starts saying "Mum" over and over again. And Nurse Carr comes over and says that's not his mum. So you can definitely see in this patient, his mind, he's shell-shocked. There's so much that he wants to happen, but he can't. His mind is stuck in the war, and he can't pull himself out of it yet. He needs a lot of help. And then next, William's father is with Dr. Gutman, and he starts crying, saying that his son could have done so much, and that he was a bright star. And although it can be frustrating for a disabled person to see other people around them treat them differently, there is a thing about a sudden change of life, and it can affect everybody, and not just the person who's become disabled. The person who now has to use a wheelchair, or can't see or hear, is still the same person as they always were. It's just that it feels like the family and friends may have to do things differently with the disabled person in order to maintain their relationship. The portrayal of that kind of grief is honest in the film, although it does seem to skim over some of the finer details. But it does show that it's not all plain sailing for those who have a loved one going through such a change in life. It just takes time, understanding, and a willingness to adapt. Dr. Gutman then goes back into the ward and he says he wants something to help with the treatment, and Sister Edward says that there are procedures and you can't just go and do what you want. But the next scene, he goes into a room where Dr. Cowan is teaching some students, and he just goes into a cupboard and takes something and leaves, while Dr. Cowan expresses his surprise that the doctor is just doing something without even asking. Back in the ward, the catatonic patient is wheezing heavily. Nurse Carr talks to him, realising that it could be PTSD, although she wouldn't have known the exact term at the time. And I think even shell shock was a bit of a new term around that time. And she tells the patient that the doctor is there, and the man stops wheezing. Dr. Gutman goes into the ward, and Sister Edwards tells him that the hospital has been given orderlies who aren't trained, and she doesn't like them because they're Polish. And that whole thing is, it's a slight, it's a thing against the Polish at the time, because that was the first place that Hitler invaded. The doctor then calls the general and has a go at him, shouting at him, and he goes back into the ward and gets angry at the orderlies as well, because just when you think one thing's gone better, something else gets worse. And at the end of the day, Dr. Gutman's getting ready for bed, and he's told by somebody that he's been warned about his behaviour, and he throws a shoe at the wall in frustration. Outside the next day, the doctor is taking Wynne outside in his bed with the help of the orderlies. Dr. Cowan and the general come into the ward, though, and ask where Wynne has gone. And Sister Edward says that he's in surgery. However, she's feeling agitated because if it's not for Dr. Gutman doing whatever he wants, and Dr. Cowan doing the opposite and basically going against everything Dr. Gutman says, then it's the general who's coming in and barking orders and trying to find out what's going on. And she snaps, and she just tells him that she's overworked and she's ignored and everything like that. In the wards, Wynne is in a wheelchair and he seems much happier. Then two people come in dressed like they're going out for the evening and say they've been hired to entertain. Then you cut to the woman singing while the man is accompanying her on a piano. Wynne is moving his arms in time to the music, but he's also making fun of them, even going as far as to make a request as to what they can really do before Dr. Gutman stops him. Sergeant Hills comes in later on with a football, places it on Wynne's bed, and encourages them to throw the football to each other. This is the start of the physical therapy that they're going to be increasing throughout the film. Outside, Dr. Gutman says to the general they need a gym and more nurses to help out. And the general is just feeling like he's being asked too much now, and he just asks Dr. Gutman if he ever gets tired. Then Dr. Gutman gets on the bus, and this is cut with the nurses talking about him and wondering if he ever gets tired, mirroring what the general has said. But then Dr. Gutman comes home. He's with his family, and as the children say goodnight to him, his wife Elsa, played by Tracy Ann Overman, talks to him and generally just small talk about their day and everything like that. But Dr. Gutman has indeed fallen asleep because he is very tired. In the ward, the patients are doing exercises with a club, sort of swinging it around and really building their arm muscles, making themselves more flexible perhaps and stronger. And Wynne makes fun of William's efforts, saying he's never worked a day in his life. Dr. Gutman is then going through the ward as various patients are exercising and the general commends him on the work. It's interesting how you ask for something and you get it, and then you can show the results, and then suddenly people will go, well, that's a fantastic idea, isn't it? And then some patients are throwing a football between them, and William says he's bored and would rather work on his legs rather than his arms, saying that he still has feeling in his legs. And later on, when William is with Dr. Gutman, he says that he's got pins and needles in his legs, and it's basically implied that he wants to work more on his legs because he wants to walk. And William says that if he can't walk, then he has no future. Dr. Gutman says that he sounds like his father, but William says that he wants the doctor to help him to walk, but Dr. Gutman assures him that that is not something that's going to happen. William gets into his chair and he's angry, and he goes outside. He's wheeling himself along, and he falls out of his chair. Nurse Carr tries to help him, but he refuses, and Dr. Gutman says that he'll ask for help when he needs it, and he's not stupid. And although this does highlight William's independence needs, quite frankly, yes, we do need help from time to time, and being truly independent can be a struggle based on the level of disability that a person has. There could be some needs such as toileting, showering and general transportation, needs where a disabled person may rely on somebody else to help them, not to mention a level of physical therapy that needs to be maintained throughout the disabled person's life. I've talked about carers and their roles before, but somebody is professional and can set boundaries and can still enable the disabled person, whoever they have under their care, can help them live their fulfilling life. It's just a matter of balancing the two so that the disabled person can feel like they have the life that they want. Later on, William is dreaming. He's putting weight on his feet and he's walking. He's walking across a field, and in reality though, he's lying in bed and he's looking defeated again. And he turns away when he's offered pills, and Wid tells him not to be so daft. So you can see how attitudes are changing among the patients. Honestly, this is quite well done, the progression of these characters. Dr. Gutman, Sister Edwards and Sergeant Hills are having tea, and they talk about William, and Dr. Gutman says that the patients need more than just exercise. And Sister Edwards says that it's okay because more entertainment has been arranged. And then we cut to the board where there are dancing girls in there. They're doing the can-can. And the men are leering and, having a good time. Particularly Wynne, who's quite excited by their presence. Outside, William's in his wheelchair and he tells Dr. Gutman that he's never had a girlfriend and he doesn't know who he is as a person, because after the accident it's made him feel like less of a man. He says that if it wasn't for Dr. Gutman, then he would be dead by now. And Dr. Gutman says that he doesn't have to thank him, but William assures him that he never would. Later, Wid's family is visiting. His two girls go off to play, and his wife Shirley, played by Mally Harries, sits on a bench while he's in a wheelchair, and she talks about what they can do when they're at home. Although it seems that William is reluctant to go home, even if it is his wife's birthday. The men are playing a game later on, and they're hitting a stone with sticks. It looks sort of like, the best thing I could describe it as is wheelchair hockey. Dr. Gutman and Sergeant Hills get into wheelchairs as well, and they start arguing about the game. It's getting to be heated, but in the next scene they resolving their differences over a pint of beer. It's a funny scene that it shows the competitive streak in these men. Indoors, the patients are playing their game, and one of the men fires a stone at some crockery, and it breaks, while Dr. Gutman and Sergeant Hills are watching. It seems like the sport might be progressing slightly. Then in the next scene, William's parents are with him, and he's reassuring them that there's nothing that can be done, and he will never walk again, they just have to accept it. William's dad looks disappointed though. And then William opens a letter that his mum gave him. It's an invitation, and his dad takes it away though because he doesn't think that William will be able to go, and he doesn't know why he brought it anyway. Next scene, the patients are playing their game outside, and it's getting exciting, and they're keeping score, and as the game's progressing, it's getting more aggressive, and Sister Edwards keeps protesting in case they get hurt. And William in particular wants to get involved, and unfortunately he does end up breaking his leg because of it. In the next scene, William and Dr. Gutman are with Dr. Cowan, and he orders a nurse to lift William on the table. However, William doesn't need the help, and he does it himself. And he says that he remembers Dr. Cowan, and he gets angry at him, saying that if it wasn't for Dr. Gutman, then he wouldn't be able to move a muscle. And the patients are all going on a countryside lane, and they're going down a hill while the nurses are holding onto their chairs and trying to make sure they don't go out of control. I mean, we've all been there. Then in the pub, Wynne orders food and drink, and then later they're arm wrestling and they're having a good time, and as they're talking, Dr. Gutman asks the other staff if they know anything about basketball. In the next scene, they're playing basketball while Dr. Gutman goads them on and calling them girlies, while William is beside him watching with one leg in a cast. Then Dr. Gutman's with William's dad, and he thinks that his son will never have a normal life and will need people to look after him, and he won't be able to get anywhere accessible to live. And this sparks something in Dr. Gutman. He goes into the ward and he gets angry at the patients, a sort of deferred anger. What were you really angry about? But then he goes to see the general and asks about what he can do to help get them accommodation. And although the rest of men has good intentions, there's a common trend in cinema when it comes to disabled people. For a long time, filmmakers have liked to show the audience that they understand disability. Usually it's when an Oscar bait film comes around, where a disabled person's life is told through the lens of a non-disabled person who plays them. And there can be moments highlighted in the script about the things a disabled person may face, and sometimes the facts about the kind of person who may have such disability. However, whilst these little morsels of information can be passed down to the audience, it rarely ever comes directly from a disabled person. And in fact, a lot of the time, the information or the portrayal of the disabled person can be wrong because the research wasn't good enough, and quite frankly, a disabled person wasn't even consulted. At home, Dr. Gutman is still working, and his wife encourages him to stop, and he gets up and they have a little dance. It's sort of nice. You can see there's a sort of work-life balance that's working itself out now. The next day, Dr. Gutman is with Wynne, who says he wants to divorce his wife. He's feeling angry, but again, it's this deferred anger. He doesn't want to go home because he's nervous about how his life has changed and how it will affect the relationship he's had with his wife. In the next scene, it's the end of the war, and they're celebrating. There are British flags everywhere, and Wynne comes in dressed up as Britannia, with the helmet and the shield and the sash, and he looks pretty good for that. But it's a funny sort of comedic moment. And a montage shows them having fun, and even Dr. Gutman ends up wearing one of the other nurses' hats. And they're talking about what they're going to do after the war, because this feels like such a final moment, an end to everything horrible that's been going on for their lives in the past 5 years. And they're talking about what they're doing, and Dr. Gutman's playing piano. Then the next scene, William and Wynne are talking, and Wynne gets angry and has a go at William's privileged life. He thinks he's a posh boy and he can just do what he wants after everything, after he can go back to his normal life. And it is again just sort of further enforces that Wynne is still uncomfortable about having to go back home and what will happen. Dr. Gutman and Sister Edwards and Sergeant Hills are then talking about their lives later on, and Sergeant Hills says that he doesn't even know if he's going to stay on at the hospital. But Dr. Gutman assures him that he will, because it's the best job in the world. Outside, Wynne is singing as the nurse pushes him along. It seems he's come back from his weekend and he's had a good time with his wife. And so it's given him a boost of confidence, made him feel much better about everything that's going to happen after the war. Then Wynne and William are outside and then they make up, they joke about things with each other, particularly with Wynne making fun of the Nazis. And this just feels like a moment where it's relief, it's everything that they've worked for, and they're finally, everything is going back to normal. Outside, the men are then shown how to do javelin. And then William says that he's not sure what to do with his life because his parents don't think that he's capable and he doesn't know how he's going to convince them. Dr. Gutman then assures him that he should make his own decisions and not rely on what his parents think or what they tell him to do. And then at a board meeting, Dr. Cowan says that the games that Dr. Gutman is suggesting is silly because they're cripples. And he says that people will make fun of them because of their disability. And just when you have a character that's in a movie that you think is the only example of a person who is like that and everybody else is absolutely fine, I can tell you that it's more common than you'd think it would be to be the way that Dr. Cowan is. It seems that non-disabled people can make disabled people not want to leave the house. Although people staring washes over me, some people can be more vocal and abusive about their views on disabled people. In the UK, there are roughly 10,000 reported cases of ableist abuse every year, and only around 300 of these ever go to prosecution. Along with the stares from strangers, disabled people have to put up with shouting and getting too close to them and aggressively getting in their way whilst passive-aggressively suggesting that they're trying to help. Disabled people can be made to feel like they don't belong, like they're not good enough at what they do or at work or who they are as people, let alone cases of discrimination in the workplace and other activities outside of work that could be hard to prove. They feel like they're taken less seriously when non-disabled people make fun of them or treat them in a certain way because of their misguided thinking that they understand the disability. All of this can mount up, and for some, the better option is to keep away so that the non-disabled people don't make them feel worse. However, that can obviously lead to isolation and mental health issues. He says that the word national games, national meaning the best, and he doesn't think that they'll be the best of anything, and Dr. Gutman corrects him, saying that they will be the best of men. And you can insert your Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV screen gif here because he said the title of the movie. Dr. Cowan says it offends him thinking of disabled people doing something like that, and it's not pleasant thinking about what they will be doing in public. And he's started to reveal his true thoughts and the ableism. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a thing among medical professionals. I'm not saying all medical professionals are like this, but there is a tendency to treat patients like they're objects rather than people, and disabled people are often suffering for it. From medical professionals completely ignoring patients' concerns, thinking they have a better suggestion, or just being careless about how they speak. It can feel a lot like one person who's trying to help you is actually just there to suit themselves. I remember when I was a child, on a couple of occasions things happened. One doctor thoughtlessly asked me what was wrong with me, implying that being disabled is wrong, and another told me that I would never go to school because I had simply burnt my foot. What I'm saying is that medical professionals need to do better when talking to patients, and consider the person as well as the disability. Outside, William's with his parents, and this is the point where he stands up for himself, and he says that he wants to live independently, but they protest and they don't think that he knows what he wants. It's a cause of trial. I mean, he's so young as well. This is definitely a turning point in his life. Back in the boardroom, Dr. Gutman is stating his case and says that Dr. Cowan is ashamed of disabled people. He's really putting him in his place, and as Dr. Cowan is revealing more of himself. Then outside, William continues to argue with his parents. His dad gets angry and leaves, and his mother says that he doesn't really mean it, and she kisses William on the cheek and she leaves as well. And then in the ballroom, they're talking about the games, and they decide to take a vote, of which Dr. Cowan is the only one that votes against it. And then in the next scene, some soldiers are putting up some archery targets. And inside the ward, Sister Edwards rushes in with a newspaper and says that they've made the national news. In the ward, William goes to welcome Win back, as he's living a normal life now with his family, but he's come back for the games. Later on, they're talking in a field. William says he's been thinking about a girl he met, and Win sort of makes fun of him, it's a bit of friendly joking back and forth, and making the young man feel embarrassed, basically. But then William's parents come back to see him, and it seems that they've had a change of heart. In the ward, another man comes in their bed, and as William was before, he asks Dr. Gutman to kill him, and when Dr. Gutman says that things will get better, he calls him a bastard. Outside, William is putting on a glove to do javelin. His father helps him to tie it on and says that he's heard about a car that could be adapted for hand control, so it shows that his father has come to a conclusion that William can probably be more capable than he thought he would be. In the next scene, Dr. Gutman is handing out prizes for the winner, and then the film goes to black and white. And then the footage of the real Stoke Mandeville Games are shown. Text comes onto the screen saying that it went international in 1952, and also Dr. Uppbeat Gutman was knighted in 1966. And then the black and white goes to colour, and they cut to modern footage of the games, the Paralympic Games. And the text reads that more than 4,000 athletes from 147 countries competed at the 2012 Paralympic Games. And I'm sure this number is just getting bigger and bigger every year as more people are encouraged to take up sport. Next, I'll be talking about my overall thoughts on the film and a little more about the Paralympic Games and the Paralympic athletes that take part. The Best of Men is a light-hearted and positive telling of how Dr. Gutman helped his patients and inspired the foundations of what to be known as the Paralympic Games. However, as I mentioned earlier, it seems to be doing so through the lens of a filmmaker who is trying to show the audience that they understand. The problem is that there are no disabled people in the cast at all, and with actors such as George Mackay and Rob Brydon among them, the audience is watching non-disabled actors portraying disabled people in a story which is very much about disabled people. There is a saying among the smaller communities when having stories told about them, and that is nothing about us without us. And sadly, The Best of Men excludes those people where it could have really shown what disabled people were capable of doing, and not just in the sports arena. There's also the way the film is portrayed, written and directed by people who are best known for making feel-good Sunday afternoon entertainment, giving a lightness that makes the audience feel good despite what the patients may have been going through physically and mentally. William's PTSD, for example, is all but forgotten by the end, and the sight of disabled people moving on with their lives is sure to make the non-disabled audience feel good. However, there's a term that's particularly aimed at media that's about disabled people, and that is inspiration porn. First coined by disability rights activist Stella Young in the same year that The Best of Men was released. It basically refers to only stories that are about disabled people, where there are a point of inspiration for the non-disabled audience. These stories show that if a disabled person can lift themselves up and get on with their lives, then surely they can too. Unfortunately, this often leads to stories like The Best of Men, where the outcome is all rose-tinted and warm, purely made to inspire the audience to feel good about their own lives. At the time, the discussion about disabled people in the media was not as widespread as it is today, but those disabled people who have wanted to watch the film may have been put off by the posturing of the filmmakers and the cast. Okay, and finally, I thought I'd talk about the Paralympic Games and the Paralympians that are involved. Just to give you an idea of the history of the Games and how successful some of the Paralympians can really be. The first international Games for athletes with disabilities was held in 1960 in Rome, and it was now recognised as the 1960 Summer Paralympics. There were 400 athletes from 22 countries, and all of them were wheelchair users with spinal cord injuries. The first winter edition took place in 1976 at the 1976 Winter Paralympics in Ormskildvik. Only 2 sports were included though, alpine skiing and cross-country skiing. By the 1970s and 80s though, athletes with visual impairments, amputations, cerebral palsy and other disabilities were integrated into the Games, and that of course dramatically increased how many people were participating. Since the 1988 Summer Paralympics in Seoul, the Paralympics have typically used the same venues as the Olympic Games, and this was a huge symbolic step towards sporting equality. And the International Paralympic Committee, the IPC, was founded in 1989, professionalising the movement and standardising classifications, rules and global qualification systems. The 2012 Summer Paralympics in London sold over 2.7 million tickets, making them one of the best attended Paralympics ever. This was no doubt in help with the broad TV coverage, which helped to see the Paralympians as good a competitor as anybody else in their sport. And finally, I thought I'd talk about the most successful Paralympians ever. Starting with Trisha Zorn, whose sport was swimming. She had 55 medals overall, making her the most successful Paralympian ever. She was blind from birth, and her first Paralympics was the 1980 Arnhem Summer Paralympics, and her last was 2004 in the Athens Summer Paralympics. Next we have Jonas Jakobsen, whose sport was shooting. He got 30 total medals, 17 golds. He was born with a physical impairment affecting his lower limbs, and his first Paralympic was 1980, and his last was in 2016. Then we have Zipporah Rubin Rosenbaum from Israel, who was involved in multiple sports, had a total of 31 medals, ranging from athletics, swimming, table tennis and wheelchair basketball. They were paralysed from polio and they were a wheelchair user. Their first Paralympics was 1964 Tokyo Summer Paralympics, and their last was 1992 Barcelona Summer Paralympics. Then we have Heinz Frey from Switzerland, who is involved with athletics, cycling and Nordic skiing, which means that he competed in the Summer and the Winter Olympic Games. He had 35 total medals, and he was a wheelchair user. His first Paralympics was 1934, and his last was in 2020, the Tokyo Summer Paralympics. Then we have Sarah Story from the UK, whose sports were swimming and cycling. She won 30 total and 19 golds as of Paris 2024. She was born with a limb difference in her left arm and hand. Her first was in 1992 Barcelona Summer Paralympics, and her last was in 2024 Paris Summer Paralympics. And we have Jessica Long from the USA. His sport was swimming. She had 31 total medals, 18 of which were gold, and she was born with fibula hemimelia, and her legs were amputated when she was a child. Her first Paralympics were in 2004, the Athens Summer Paralympics. Her first were in the 2004 Athens Summer Paralympics, and her latest was in 2024, the Paris Summer Paralympics. Then we have Roberto Marzan from Italy, who was involved in athletics, fencing and swimming. He won 26 total medals, 16 of which were gold, and he has a spinal injury. His first was in 1964 in the Tokyo Summer Paralympics, and his last was in 1976 in the Toronto Summer Paralympics. Then we have Beatrice Hess from France, whose sport was swimming. She won 25 total medals, 20 of which were gold, and she has cerebral palsy. Her first Paralympics was in 1984, and her last was in 2004. Then we have Maomi Narita from Japan, whose sport was swimming. She had 20 total medals, 15 of which were gold, and she had a spinal cord injury, meaning she was a wheelchair user. Her first Paralympics was 1996, and her last was in 2004. And we have Diana Diaz from Brazil, whose sport was swimming, and he had a total of 14 golds. He was born with a limb deficiency, which had short limbs affecting his swimming classification, but clearly that didn't stop him. His first was in the 2008 Beijing Summer Paralympics, and his last was in the 2024 Paris Summer Paralympics, and he's still active. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me. Next week I'll be talking about The Mighty, the 1998 film about two boys with different disabilities who become best friends. If you'd like to contact me, you can do so via Bluesky at bluesky.com/film-ability. You can also email me at film-ability@outlook.com. And if you'd like to make a contribution to the things that I do here, you can find me at Patreon at patreon.com/film-ability. You can also find my book at Amazon on Kindle and paperback called Film Ability, A History of Disability in Cinema. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.